Here's what's next on the Nice Guys on Business.
You mentioned a word in your question that is the key to success, and that is the word passion, because passion is so much more important than talent. We sat in our stationery closet for 12 months and nothing changed. And so we had no product. And the whole idea was that for some reason there was a passion. I woke up every morning forgetting the day before, forgetting the frustration of sitting in that closet, anticipating something good to happen. And I think today entrepreneurs tend to give up too quickly. If things aren't too neat for us, you learn along the way. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. So, to start an entrepreneurial experience thinking that you've got everything lined up perfectly, it never works.
In The Art of War, Sun Tzu wrote, "Keep your friends close, and the nice guys on business closer." Need an education on how to grow your business? The Nice Guys are here to help. Learn about great customer service, networking, and how just being nice can help you prosper. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
Welcome back. It's a new week. It is Monday. Funkin' fans. My name is Strickland Bonner. On the other side of the microphone, Mr. Doug Sandler. How you doing, Doug?
Did you do welcome back, or did I just miss it in the skip?
You missed it. You
actually said
attention. I just
No,
said
I was
it.
sitting right here the entire time, right next to you.
You see, you can only focus on one thing at once. There is no such thing as multitasking, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. Anybody who has ever thought about speaking, public speaking, getting out in front of an audience, Mr. Bernie Swain, who was our interview today, he founded the Washington Speakers Bureau, which is huge
Crazy.
now. I mean, I don't even know how big they are, but like Ronald Reagan was one of their first people that signed on as a speaker for them. I mean, that's big.
Three presidents, 4 prime ministers, 5 secretaries of state. I mean, this guy is legit. How he found our show, no idea. Second, how I'm sure could he have possibly listened to an episode before he came on the show?
I doubt it.
I
mean, maybe he happened to listen to one of the Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes and thought, this guy's okay. Sure, what the heck, I'll give it a shot.
This could be good. Or maybe he's just probably saw one of the tweets where we show how many people listen to the show, and he said, I don't care what they're doing, but I want to be on their show. That could be it. You ever wonder how many people actually just look at the numbers without looking at any content and say, I want to be on that show?
I'm okay with that.
No, I'm okay with it too.
As long as it's somebody we want,
I can't remember who I reached out to this week, but I did make some contacts. I think last week I Googled celebrities that have upcoming book deals, and there was like a half a dozen that are coming out. And I can't remember somebody that was. I can't remember some of the shows. Oh shoot, this isn't good. I should probably have prepared for this, shouldn't I have? Yeah. See, I think that's a common theme. Lack of preparation. Is that okay?
Is what okay?
Lack of
preparation? Why would we change now? We've been doing it like this for 2.5 years. I mean, we seem to be successful. Prepare. I don't know what the problem is.
I do prepare when the guests come on the show, and I do look at their bio. I do usually, if I get a copy of their book ahead of time, I do at least read over their book, or in some cases, I've read the entire book. And I feel like I expend all of my energy on our guests, and then when it comes to you and me, I do nothing.
But it seems to be working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
All right. That's cool. So Bernie founded the Washington Speakers Bureau. He's here today to chat a little bit about his book, What Made Me Who I Am. And the guy, he knows his stuff. He really talks about, as an entrepreneur, as a guy that took a chance on opening up a speaking agency. He originally called the idea of owning the agency a preposterous idea. I mean, the same thing that we call starting a podcast a preposterous idea. And then we decided to actually move forward. So if there's anything that Bernie and you and I have in common, Strick, it's the fact that we thought that the idea was completely idiotic, but we moved on it anyway. And Bernie has seemed to make a great success out of it, and we've made absolutely nothing out of it. So
we're getting there.
They're in the similarities differ, right?
Although
there.
I do have big news tomorrow that we're going to talk about.
Tomorrow?
Patreon news.
Oh, geez, yeah. You're not gonna tease it a little bit, are you?
Of course I'm going to tease it. I just did tease it. That's the whole point. I'm teasing it by saying we have big Patreon news that you will hear all about tomorrow.
Oh, I'm very interested. Tomorrow, can you also share tomorrow we haven't done an Amazon purchase of the week, a purchase of the month. We haven't done a lot of you remember the stuff that we used to do on a regular basis?
Yeah, but I mean, nobody's screaming for it either. I mean, that's the whole evolution of the show.
Strickland,
is if things
no one is screaming for anything.
Okay. Amazon.
Are you still in Florida? Are you still in Florida?
The week I am right now, actually. Yeah.
When
I'm in Orlando right now. I come home on Wednesday.
Hey, there's your phone. Oh, I missed that sound. You need to come home.
I wasn't even listening. Oh, there we go.
I did. What happened?
Oh, Mar's going to jump in.
Oh, okay. Well, wait. Is she going to jump in on Monday's show or on
Tuesday?
On,
she'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, amazing! I'm loving it. Okay, so let's get to the interview with Bernie Swain right here on the what the hell's the name of the show? The Nice Guys on Business. If anybody from Washington Speakers Bureau is actually listening to this podcast, we apologize. The interview is really good. The stuff that we do ahead of time. If everybody just forwards through that, it'll be fine. It's all good. Anyway, let's do it. Interview with Bernie Swain here on the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Proud to be affiliated with the C-Suite Radio Network and the Greatness Podcast Network. Let's do it right now. The most successful people are driven by their defining moments, or so says our guest today, Bernie Swain. He is co-founder and chairman of one of the most powerful agencies in the world, the Washington Speakers Bureau. The Washington Speakers Bureau. God, I don't want to screw up the name of a company that a guy founded. Never want to do that. His clients, they consist of presidents, dignitaries, celebs, and sports heroes, sometimes behind the scenes, but always leading the pack. Welcome, Bernie, to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Well, I'm great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Bernie, as you're up on stage, and I know you speak a lot, and the guy that's introducing you flubs completely the introduction. Do you have him restart and go over again, or do you just say, okay, that was screw ups are acceptable?
No, I think the thing about whatever I did or whatever somebody gives a speech, it's all about being real. So if you're going to manufacture something or make it too clean, then it never works.
Well, we feel the same way, and that's why. And we have a professional production company, aka the guy that is my co-host. That's the cheapest way. If you want to really get cheap services, you partner with somebody. They give them them to you. I always felt like I listen to these podcasts, and while the production is important, I always think the genuine nature of the person that's hosting the show or the guests on the show, the more that you're genuine and show the true self, I think that's always great. That's always great.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, it's being real,
I saw Terry Bradshaw. He actually was speaking for let's see, it was wait a minute, it wasn't Terry Bradshaw. Wait, who you would know this guy. I'm hoping that you know him. He was the guy that broke his leg. Joe Theismann, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry. And Washington Speakers Bureau, I think, represents Joe Theismann as well, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely.
And he came in and he was speaking to Meeting Professionals International, who I am a member of or was a member of for many years. And one of the things that was so cool about the way that he presented is he basically had he had absolutely no slides. He had every story that you could possibly imagine. And just as candidly and genuine as that guy was, his speech was that much more amazing because of that. And I always feel like if I could get up on stage one day and just tell stories about like all of these great things that happened to me in my life, it just seems like that is truly the mark of success, is some good stories in your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. The odd thing is, and you mentioned, obviously I've given a lot of speeches, and the odd story is that I've really not given a lot of speeches before. Most of the time I've spoken, it's been to my staff, because I always felt I had to stay behind the scenes because I represented well-known people, and the story that needed to be told was not my story, but it was the story of the people that I represented. So nobody ever really knew me for 35 years until I ended up writing a book, and then I had to teach myself how to speak.
Well, interestingly enough, the book is called What Made Me Who I Am, and it is really a collection of these amazing stories that Bernie has learned through the years, Nice Guy community. Definitely you want to pick up a copy of this book. It's such a cool collection, and it must have been so awesome to put together. You've got to be happy with what has turned out, are you?
I am. It's an odd thing. I'm one of those people that started life not knowing where he was going to go. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening today that felt like they started life. I was never intending to go to college, and by a quirk, I ended up going to college. And then when I was 36 years old, I had my dream job, and then suddenly walked away from my dream job and started something in a closet that I had no experience or no plan or no idea what I was doing. And then along the way, I lost my way, a couple times, which happens to all of us.
Who doesn't? I mean, I feel like if you're not screwed up with your plans, then you're not in the right spot.
Right. So, I mean, I think a lot of the things that I experienced were the things that we all experience in life, and that's these turning points in life that really end up to be the people who come into our lives, or those powerful moments, those defining moments, those unexpected events, those moments in time that we all experience. And the thing that I learned is that you need to pay attention to those. I'm in New York right now, and I remember the great catcher for the New York Yankees once said, "When you get to a fork in the road, you take it."
Yeah, that's right.
And oddly enough, that's what most of us do. We miss these turning points in our lives, and by sheer luck, I took the right path in life for some reason, and then learned, because of the nature of what I ended up doing, representing smart people, wise thinkers, that I ended up learning something actually from those people that made me understand what I had experienced in life, and help me guide me in the future.
Well, you originally called the agency a preposterous idea. When you originally came up with it, I'm looking at some of the information on your bio. So crazy, in fact, it had to work for you or you would lose everything. So can you just share a little bit about how you even thought about this idea of building the agency?
Well, I was just chosen to be the athletic director at a university, and that had been my dream job. And at the same time, somebody sent me a copy of Fortune magazine, and in the magazine was an article about the Harry Walker Agency, which at the time was the largest lecture agency in the world. And in the article, the author recounts how Harry Walker walks into the Gerald Ford White House and picks up Henry Kissinger and Alexander Haig and Gerald Ford as clients. And near the end of the article, the author quotes Henry Kissinger as complaining to Harry Walker about the high commission rate he wanted to charge. And Henry Kissinger says, "Why don't I sign with one of your competitors?" Harry Walker's response was, "I have no competitors."
No competition.
So I just took the magazine home and I left it on the coffee table, and I came home days later and my wife sat me down and she said, "Did you read this article? He has no competition." And she sat me down and she said, "You come home 2 or 3 times a week and you complain about the bureaucracy of university life. Are you sure you're going to be happy with this new job that you have?"
No, she was foreshadowing what was coming.
And she, over a period of weeks, she pushed and she prodded me and convinced me to walk away from my new job and start this agency with no plan or no experience and no money. And in fact, I remember in order to get money to live on, I had been making only $33,000 a year as assistant athletic director. I probably would have been making $50,000 or $60,000 as the athletic director back in 1979. Mm-hmm. And so we put a second mortgage on our home, and I ended up having 2 mortgages on my home for $55,000 of a $60,000 house at the time above 12% interest rate.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to allocate money for an office. It was just the 2 of us, and then we added our partner, the guy who sent me the magazine article, and And so we had a friend, Chuck Hagel, who ended up to be United States Senator later and Secretary of Defense for Barack Obama. He rented us his stationery closet, and so that's how we started.
What I love most is I'm looking through this client list, and as I'm looking through your bio also, 3 presidents, 4 prime ministers, 5 secretaries of state. But Bernie, I notice nowhere in here is a Nice Guys podcast host. I must have missed this invitation to contribute to your agency.
Everybody makes mistakes.
I know. I get it. So can you share some of your why for a moment? Because I love the fact that a guy that is as successful as you have become over the years and over the decades, you started with no business plan. And I think that very similar to a lot of the people in our listening audience, including myself, I really don't have a focused, structured business plan. I feel like I'm following opportunity based upon the passion that's in my life at that moment. You're one of the most successful entrepreneurs of our day. It's not about the money now, but can you share your why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a word in your question that is the key to success, and that is the word passion, because passion is so much more important than talent. We sat in our stationery closet for 12 months and nothing changed. Oddly, we would sit in the closet and we would think of famous names, and back then there was no internet, so we would try to find a telephone number, but nobody ever returned our telephone calls. And then we would try to find an address, and our letters were returned from lawyers who said, my client, it would say, my client, this famous person, is under a written contract with another agency. Do not write us again or we'll sue you. Mm-hmm. And so, as I mentioned, there was no internet. For the very first time, sitting in that closet, we discovered that there were 5 or 6 large agencies in the United States in addition to Harry Walker's, and Harry Walker's claim in that magazine, which was the reason we got started, was nothing more than a strategic boast. And I remember sitting in that closet often late at night after Paul and my wife went home, and I would think to myself, what have we done? Mm-hmm. And I'm often asked the question, how did you stay in that closet for 12 months and with no success, not representing anyone in an industry that is key to representing people? That's your product.
Right.
And so we had no product, and the whole idea was that for some reason there was a passion. I woke up every morning thinking, forgetting the day before, forgetting the frustration of sitting in that closet and anticipating something good to happen. And I think today entrepreneurs tend to give up too quickly. Yeah. If things aren't too neat for us, do I have the product? Have I done this right? Have I done that right? The thing is, you learn along the way. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. So, to start an entrepreneurial experience thinking that you've got everything lined up perfectly, it never works. Oh, so true. Because you learn along the way. I mean, everything changes. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but the bottom line is I learned from those mistakes, and they made me a better entrepreneur, and they guaranteed my success because I ended up paying attention to those.
Absolutely. The book again is called What Made Me Who I Am, and it's available on Amazon, and we'll also make sure we put links in our show notes to get to Bernie's website as well. The book is really interesting. Share with our Nice Guy community a story that's in your book that inspires you the most. I know there are many, but is there one that really stands out for you?
Let me start it this way. I was not paying attention to the people I represented, and I got a call one day from Alex Haley, who was the great author of Roots. And Alex said, I'd like to come and see you. And when he came to see us, we instantly bonded. And oddly enough, he used to come back into my office and he would spend hours at a time talking about family and relationships. And he used to repeat a phrase to me, when an old person dies, it's like a library burning. And what he ended up saying, and I understanding, was that our lives are like turning points, these forks in the road that I referred to about Yogi Berra. And in order to pay attention, we need to pay attention to those forks in the road because they make us who we are. They contribute, these turning points, to our success and accomplishment much more than the things that we learn in life about work hard, embrace change, overcome adversity. I like all of those things. I like all those lessons, and I've taught them to my staff and I've taught them to my family before. But it's what we learn from inside of us. And so to answer your question, I like a lot of the stories in the book because, and I don't have a particular favorite one, but I will say I'm surprised by Tom Brokaw, for example, flunked out of college. He was most likely to succeed in high school, flunked out of college twice.
Yeah.
And so I asked the question, what separated Tom's life from the rest of us who fail in life? Or there's a story about Liz Murray. Liz was born of drug-addicted parents and became homeless to live on the streets and the subways of New York City as a teenager. Now, Liz ended up working her way back into high school after being turned down by high schools in New York. They didn't want to take her because she'd missed so much time. Ended up going to Harvard. Now, what separated Liz's life from the many others, the countless others in this country who are homeless, or for those of us who can maybe relate a little bit better, those of us who are stuck in one position or another.
Yes.
And I love Robert Reich's story. Robert Reich, for those who don't know him, he was the Secretary of Labor. He's only 5'1", and he was bullied all of his life. But his life dramatically changed by the tragic death of another boy who protected him. And so I raised the question in the story about him is what separated his life and his success from the thousands of kids who today are bullied in school. I just did a program at the Harvard Bookstore with Doris Kearns Goodwin. Doris was about to become a White House fellow and had months earlier written an article calling for the defeat of the re-election of the President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson, during the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And the article was published just as she was leaving to go as a White House fellow. And so the question I raise in the book is that what separated Doris's life? And she ended up with a great friendship of his. What separated Doris's life from the rest of us who closed doors in our lives, separate us from other people, and never open those doors again? Nice. So there's a lot of stories I love, but in those stories, I found questions. I found what did I learn from them, or what can others learn from them? I learned along the way.
It's great. And again, the book is called What Made Me Who I Am. And you can actually pick up the book pretty much anywhere in the book and start reading because of all of the interesting nature of the stories that are right there within the pages. And we'll make sure that we put information in the show notes how to get a copy of the book. I have some curious questions that I need to find out the answers to because I've never had any brush with huge fame in my life. But what is it like to sign a president? I mean, you have three of them, or probably more at this point. You had three of them on your roster. Did you get to keep the pen? and who was it? Was Reagan the first?
Reagan was the first.
It had to change your life.
It totally changed. We were one of 30 agencies at the time. We were 8 years old. We were kind of a middling agency. We were, nobody in Washington ever expected us to represent a president of the United States. We were one of 30 agencies invited to interview to represent him. And many of those agencies ended up to be Hollywood agencies because he'd been an actor in Hollywood.
Right.
And so the idea was that you would go through an interview process and they would go from 30 to 15 and then another series of interviews from 15 to 7. And eventually they would select the top two choices for the president and Mrs. Reagan to make the final decision. And Washington's a very gossipy town, so these interviews ended in mid-December, and weeks went by, and I was anxious to find out something. So, being a gossipy town, I was calling people on the phone trying to find out something, because usually you can find out whatever you want in Washington, D.C. So I couldn't find out anything. And in fact, 2 months passed, and I get a call from Fred Ryan, who is now the publisher of the Washington Post. And Fred and so I kind of braced myself for the bad news, thinking,
what are the chances?
Yeah, he's going to say to me, you know, Bernie, you did a great job. You ought to be proud of what you've done in 8 years, you know, building the company up. But, you know, we have to go with some people that are more experienced than you are. So I got on the phone waiting for the bad news, and he got on there, and he went right to the point. He said, Bernie, President and Mrs. Reagan have selected you to represent them. And
Holy crap, Bernie.
I had no idea what to say.
It's like you're a guy that you know that you're going to lose, so you haven't written the acceptance speech.
Exactly. And so I said, I promised we would do a good job. I said, we'll be in touch, and I hung up the phone.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I sat there at my desk. I remember sitting there at my desk that day, and I was thinking to myself how totally amazing that a president of the United States would select a totally inexperienced group of people to represent him and risk 8 years of a legacy on people that could really screw it up. But as I got to know him over the years, I came to understand what it was all about. He was really a small town boy.
Yeah.
Who believed in entrepreneurism and the little guy, and he was true to the principles that founded and guided his life. It was what Alex Haley had said to me years earlier that became a reality in Ronald Reagan. And so, to answer your question, I know I'm going around, but to answer your question,
I love the story.
What I learned from Ronald Reagan is that Ronald Reagan was no different than I am. I mean, you know, I could sit down and talk to Ronald Reagan. So it made it easier. After that, you know, within months we were representing Margaret Thatcher and then Colin Powell and General Schwarzkopf. I remember during the end of the Gulf War, the Gulf War had another 2 or 3 weeks to go, and I remember seeing General Schwarzkopf in the bunker giving a press conference and showing the bombing that was taking place. And as I'm watching it, I get a telephone call from the bunker, and it said that General Schwarzkopf would like to speak to you after the press conference is over. And so I sat there in my office and thinking, you know, he's going to call in a couple hours. I ended up sitting in the office for 5 or 6 hours. You know, because I didn't want to leave. Yeah. You know, I thought and nobody back then, there was no fake news back then.
Right.
So you believed it. And so he ended up calling, and I ended up talking about speeches when the war was over. And I discovered that for some reason I was never afraid, whether it was Ronald Reagan or Alex Haley or Lou Holtz at the coach of Notre Dame, people who influenced me in my life, whatever it was, I came to understand they were no different than I was. You know, some of them started from backgrounds. Lou Holtz lived in a one-room apartment where the sink and the bathroom were in the same room as the kitchen. You know, and so, you know, and my father lived in an orphanage for part of his life. So he's no different than I am. I mean, he's successful and a great coach, and I think that's I think in order for us to learn in life, we have to not be afraid or not put barriers up to say, this person's different. You know, they made a success because they were given that golden key, or they had opportunities that I didn't have.
I don't think it works that. I mean, it does work that way to a degree, but I attach myself to the person, and I always feel like the most successful person is the one, to me, that's the most relatable. If you can relate to me, if you can fall in love with me, and I can fall in love with you and your message and your story. I mean, as you're listening, I'm just completely. I'm not even looking at my notes as I'm just having a conversation with Bernie, because you're just a normal guy. I mean, you've had all of this fame and fortune, met presidents and diplomats and famous people, but Bernie, you're just a normal guy. And I got that from our first tweet on Twitter. And I didn't look at a thing about you when you connected with me on Twitter, other than knowing this is a guy, it's relatable, he's got a book out, seems interesting. And then when I started to look at you and your bio, I'm like, oh shit, what have I got? I've got my hands on somebody that's big, but you don't come across that way. You're as humble as can be.
Yeah, and I had many of my neighbors never knew what I did. I mean, because there's no need. I think most of us in life, we ended up not talking about it. I mean, right. There are examples of people who talk about who they are, but that's not the rest of us.
Right.
And successful entrepreneurs are people who care about people. And whether it's a president of the United States or it's somebody who's going to carry your luggage out of the hotel, you treat those people with the same kind of respect and understanding that you treat everybody else with. And that really is the key to entrepreneurism. I mean, whether you're running a coffee shop or you're doing what I'm doing, I'm the brand.
Yeah.
If I'm running a coffee shop, they're coming in to get coffee from me mostly because not my coffee is totally different than somebody else's, but because
they like you.
They like me, and I made it a home, and it's comfortable to them.
All right, Bernie. So I got to ask this, and I've held you longer than I told you I was going to, but you're fascinating conversation to have. So I want to just ask you a couple more questions before we conclude. But I really want to know. I'm so curious about this question. What do you want people to remember you for?
Well, that's a good question. If the thing I worry about most is because you have a lot to do with entrepreneurism, and I just think the greatest thing you can do in life is to do something on your own. Mm-hmm. And entrepreneurism is such a way of expressing yourself. And my hope is that too many people today give up on that experience too early. Too many people are afraid of doing it. So my hope is that either from the book or the experience of my life or people hearing me on your podcast, my hope is that they will understand that they have a talent inside of them, and they need to find that passion for whatever they want to do. And that passion is locked up in the turning points of their own life. And if they just look back and say, who in my life has influenced me? What moments in time have changed me? What didn't I see in my life? What did I see? And where's the path and the direction that I'm going? And you learn from that. And who knew that I'd end up representing these people?
Yeah.
Who knows that's listening today where their life will end up if they just pay attention to these turning points. And these turning points, as I said before, are so much more important than the traditional business and life lessons that we're taught.
The book again is called, hold on a second, I lost it for a moment. What Made Me Who I Am? And Bernie Swain has been spending some time with us here on the Nice Guys podcast. Bernie, can you give me about 20 more seconds here, because
Absolutely.
I want to give you my pitch. Am I okay to do this? Can I do this?
I think it's okay.
Because I said I can't have Bernie come on my show. He's the founder of the Washington Speakers Bureau. I've tried for 4 years for the Washington Speakers Bureau to return my call, and it's always been a no-go. You have any power up in that joint still?
I would have power. All you have to do is send it to me.
All right. So,
and let me just say, for the people who want to be great speakers,
yeah.
The most difficult thing you do in life is speaking. I mean, it is if people list it as either the first or second most greatest fear that they have.
Oh my gosh!
And so in life, just do a couple things. Determine how different than that you are in life. Find what your story is, and you learn through your own personal stories the things that you've learned in life. And by doing that, you're going to be teaching. That's what people who do TED Talks and TEDx Talks and get out on a speaking circuit do, is that they take the experience in their life and they relate it to the people that are in the audience, and those people learn from that experience.
So, nice guy community, I'm taking that as a yes. Bernie still does have power at Washington Speakers Bureau, and he will help me land some speaking gigs. So, I mean, my message is pretty counter-corporate. I mean, it's one that should strike a chord with many leaders, though. It's called Nice Guys Finish First. I even have a best-selling book called Nice Guys Finish First. So, just so you're aware, Bernie, I might even find. I think I have your address. I might have to send you a copy of that.
I would look forward to it.
Hey, Bernie, thank you so much for being on the show. If our listeners wanted to get a hold of your agency or of you or of anything that you have that you're offering, or even your speaking services, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I have an email is bswain, BSWAIN at Washington Speakers with an S at the end of speakers.com. You can always email me. I'll do it. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Bernie Swain website, which I post a lot of blogs, including there's a blog in there, 10 steps to having a speakers bureau become interested in you. Ooh. So that might be helpful to people.
Yes, me.
And I love answering questions. I think you'll love the stories in the book. There are 34 stories, including mine, and they're very short stories that I wrote. And they're all different learning experiences and turning points that I think you'll see yourself in these stories.
That is awesome, Bernie. Thank you so much. I'm hoping we can move a whole bunch of books off the shelves and let you live in the luxury that you've grown accustomed to over the years. Bernie, thanks for being on the show today.
Doug, thank you very much. You take care.
My pleasure. Nice guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Bernie Swain for being on the show. All information in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the nice guys. That's their story, and they're sticking to it.